Welcome back, everybody. It's Dr. Craig Malkin, a clinical psychologist and lecturer for Harvard Medical School. I'm also the author of Rethinking Narcissism, which is devoted to helping you understand and cope with narcissism in all its forms and all your relationships. Today, I'm going to talk about the twin fantasy with narcissists. If you like my videos, please give them a thumbs up and comment and subscribe by turning the notification bell on so you can see them when they come in. The twin fantasy is, again, this is language that I picked for Rethinking Narcissism because it describes more or less exactly what the twin fantasy is. The twin fantasy is exactly what it sounds like. If you think about the words, it is a fantasy based on the idea that somehow you are alike. And people who are extremely narcissistic are often apt to engage in the twin fantasy, foster it. It's fun. It's another one of those experiences that might be missed early on in a relationship if you're not really thinking about what is involved in the twin fantasy and what's really going on. So it's easy to kind of gloss over. So it's another one that I think is really important and helpful to share with you in our conversation. If you're rooted in the belief that you share the exact same preferences, the same dreams, the same ideas, the same needs even, the reason that is an indicator of narcissism isn't because it's all about special connection based on feeling alike, because we all do this from time to time. We all do it from time to time. In fact, I could probably use that same qualifier in a lot of things that I share here. It's about inflexibility and rigidity of these patterns. But you think about when you're growing up, when you had friends in high school, you might have had a connection with somebody at some point. I mean, not always, but we often had a connection with somebody where every conversation was like, oh, I love that too. Oh, you want to go see Led Zeppelin? Or I guess Billie Eilish would be a better example today, or Taylor Swift. Oh yeah, I'm a Swiftie. That teens often group together on the basis of this sort of having a special connection because they are alike. I guess a more commonplace example for adults would be, have you ever been in an office situation or a work situation where some young assistant or somebody who works there kind of toadies up to, copies, dresses like, talks like the boss? That is the twin fantasy at work. And the reason it is a sign of extreme narcissism when it becomes inflexible and rigid is, as I've shared before, it is a bypass of normal, healthy, vulnerable feelings. That is, when we're sad, scared, lonely, blue, and particularly when we feel disconnected or disappointment, a difference between us and somebody else, or we have a need that needs to be met. The vulnerability dodge is doing an end run around that. And the twin fantasy is one way to do that. If you truly believe that you are essentially one mind in two bodies, then there's never really any worry about there being a difference between you and the other person. No difference, no disappointment. So you can see that for somebody who is extremely narcissistic and might worry about being rejected or turned away from or losing a relationship, not having to worry about there being difference to work out becomes really, really helpful. I mean, the other reason it's a bypass is similarly, if I can just assume that we're alike in all these ways, if I can just assume that we share the same dreams and the same fantasies, if I can just assume that you have more or less the same needs, there's no risk. Again, I don't really have to ask for anything. It's just assumed we're going to do things in the same way. We're going to have the same experience. So you can imagine in a romantic relationship, this kind of twin fantasy can be really compelling in the beginning. And I want to emphasize this in and of itself is not a problem. Much as is the case with any of the patterns that I share with you, what you want to see is there some room to relate in a different way. So if you're dating somebody early on and every single conversation seems to be geared around, oh, this is the exact same thing I think here, about politics. Oh, this is the exact same way I feel about modern music. Oh, we're just the same in that way. If there's a real insistence on that, you want to pay attention to that, because there's all kinds of ways for rich and deep connections that are also based on difference. even in a romantic relationship when you're just trying to get to know somebody. So how is it any less deep to be able to say something along the lines of, I really love modern music. I get that you don't like it at all, but it's something that I really enjoy. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts about it. It's nice to hear a different perspective because I'm so immersed in it. You have to sort of feel your way through these moments of being able to share points of difference and see what the response is. When somebody is truly invested in bypassing all vulnerability by just maintaining the illusion constantly that you're more or less are twins emotionally, spiritually, and any other way, then what you will see is kind of disappointment, a kind of flinching away. You'll feel the ripples in the relationship, the noise it creates in the background. If you do something simple like say, you know what, I am not that huge of a fan of Korean food. I mean, you have to be authentic. I mean, don't just kind of come up with statements to disagree. There's going to be plenty of moments where you have a different feeling, you have a different idea, or you have a different need. What you want to do is to see if it breaks the spell, just to be open about those things. If you can stay connected, even when you're challenging that twin fantasy, then you know it's an authentic connection because, again, so much richness in difference and differences in perspective. There's as much richness in that and much depth and intensity and specialness as there is in sort of being always on the same page with everything. So test it out, see if there's wiggle room. Hope you found that helpful. If you do like it, please remember to comment, give it a thumbs up, and I'll be back with more videos. Take care.